Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and welcome to PlayLoad. This is all my video game pickups for the month of July 2017. A little bit of preamble here, but if you don't care about any of that, you just want to see the items on the table, there's no harm in that. Feel free to skip to the time code presented right there, and you're on your way with just the pickups. Otherwise, okay, thank you for sticking around. So just so you guys know, the bulk of this month, I was actually in Europe. I was in Germany, Poland, Austria, the Czech Republic, and Hungary. Now, while I was there, contrary to popular belief, even though I'm told this all the time, I wish I could do this, but it's not true, I don't go to other places just to look at video game stores. That would be fucking awesome if that was a thing. But no, when I'm in other countries or other places, there's always reasons for it, and if I'm lucky, I get to stop into a video game store every once in a while. This time around, you have to understand the Eastern Bloc countries like Poland, the Czech Republic, and Hungary, they don't have much in the way of video games. Although to Hungary's credit, when my buddy and I, his name is Ronald, I'll be talking a lot more about him in this video, he and I went over there. We found one retro game store that had like 6 PS2 games. Like, that was the furthest back it went. Everything else was like current gen or at least 7th gen. And we also, while we were in Hungary, we also found like the cheap clone console section that was actually hilarious. It had like Kinect clones and Wii clones and stuff like that. That was pretty funny. But yeah, I didn't do any checking out in the Czech Republic. And in Poland, I've been there multiple times. It's the same kind of deal. It's like the furthest back it goes is PS2, and mostly it's current gen stuff. With Germany, they have everything, but at the same time, Germany has a lot of weird like laws about censorship in games and like all these things they do to mutate games, although they're getting a lot better at that in recent years. Because of that, though, you have to be kind of careful about the games you pick up there, which really just left Austria. And Austria doesn't actually have that great of a retro game scene either. You have to like know a guy who's already got a collection or something like that, or at least knows where all the good spots are, stuff like that. And unfortunately, none of that was really an option to me. So everything I picked up in Europe is in this video. There will not be a dedicated game store tour or anything like that from this particular trip. Sorry if you look forward to that, but in this case, it didn't happen. Now, so I did get a bunch of stuff for a multitude of different reasons. The first one is actually very strange and it requires a little bit of a backstory. So my buddy Ronald, who I just mentioned a moment ago, lives in Austria. Now, I visited him 2 years ago as part of a different trip. He's actually the same dude who hooked me up with both of my Philips CDIs. Like, what this dude does is he's like really talented with modding consoles, repairing consoles. He's, you know, all-purpose really good with electronics. He's a dude I wholeheartedly recommend if you're looking for modification of a game console for one reason or another. So when I went out to visit him 2 years ago, he was like, yeah, bring this, this, and this, and I'll do this, this, and that to all these various things. And I came back with a ton of pickups and all that stuff from that. But there was a few items I had commissioned for one reason or another that didn't quite work out. There was an NES I brought with me. He had modded it. We couldn't get it to work because at the time he was very new to the NES. He hadn't really been using it much, and he didn't have any replacement parts. So what we thought was wrong with it was the 72-pin connector wasn't really working right. And I was like, well, don't worry about it. I'll get it home, and then I'll put in a new one, and we'll get it running. That wasn't the issue, and I'll talk about that more later. At the same time, on that trip, my laptop died, like my work laptop, and I was like, fuck, I really need that right away. So I was like, can you prioritize this? And I had him work on another item, which was an OG Xbox. Anyway, long story short, I took the NES back with me, and the Xbox plus the laptop and a couple other items, he had, like, after about a month or so, he was totally done with them, so he shipped them out to me. And we ran into the world's worst luck, whereby all that stuff was destroyed. It was in a UPS truck that had crashed, and it was completely annihilated. So what he was able to do is they sent him back the remains, and he was like, look, your laptop was completely destroyed. I can salvage parts of it. I'm going to get some replacement other parts, and I'll basically Frankenstein one together. And so he did that. He finished it, and he sent me my laptop right away. He's like, the Xbox was completely totaled. I have to get all new components for that. And I was like, fuck, all right. So that's what he did. So I had my laptop back, and everything was fine for a while. And as he's working on the Xbox, and he's working on a couple other things, he was like, hey, I'm ordering stuff from Japan. Do you want me to order stuff for you? At the time, I had no idea I would be going to Japan eventually. So he had ordered a bunch of stuff, and it was all kind of sitting there. And over the course of the next like year or so, he shipped it like 3 or 4 more times, and it never got further than New Jersey. There's this horrible post office in New Jersey that's like famously terrible. I've had problems with them where your packages get destroyed, dismantled, returned for no fucking reason. Awful, awful post office. It's like the anus of the post office system. It's that fucking horrible one in New Jersey. So it was stuck there for a few months, and then other times you would ship it and it would be stuck in Germany for whatever reason. And eventually, like the beginning of this year, it was like, all right, you want to do another round of this? And it was like, you know what? I'll probably come visit Austria again relatively soon, so don't even worry about it. You know, I'll come pick it up at some point. And the reason I'm telling you all of this is that because of that, there was some Japanese stuff that had just been sitting there waiting for me. And the first item up is, and it may sound very familiar, is this. Skylanders Spyro's Adventure for the Wii U. This is a Japanese exclusive Skylanders game, at least the Wii U version. And it might seem familiar because I actually own this already. I picked this up in Japan at a book off for $9. This particular one came with a bunch of extra toys, which I don't really care about Skylanders or anything, so like, you're like, well, why do you have this? This particular game is very, very uncommon. Like I said, only released in Japan, and most people don't even realize that it even exists. And over there, it's worthless but not common. I've been told so far as that it was even released like only at a convention, like right at the beginning of the Wii U lifespan. It is not common. I now own 2 copies of it, and as soon as my first video went up with it, Ronald messaged me. He's like, "Dude, did you forget that we like ordered one like a year ago?" And I was like, "Yes, I did forget that." So yeah, now I have a second one. Not totally sure what to do with it, but there it is. At least it was cheap as well. Now. So moving on from that, I have some other games, obviously. One of them is not from Europe. This is something you guys would have seen earlier, hopefully, if you watched my video. This is a Dreamcast game called Breakers. Now, like I said, did an entire video on this, so if you want more information, check it out. But it's a fighting game, and it's pretty cool. That's all I'm going to say on this. Moving on, another Dreamcast item. When I was in Berlin, I tried to coordinate like a fan meetup, but it was kind of difficult because I wasn't at a convention or anything like that. It wasn't an obvious place to go. I'd never been to Berlin before, so it's not like I know even like a really good spot other than like stereotypical ones like, oh, let's all meet up at the Brandenburg Gate or something like stupid like that. So I was like, once I got there, I figured out, all right, how about this restaurant? Like the day of, I sent out messages to people. I was like, yeah, if you're still interested, this is where I'm going to go. So like 5 people came out, which was really cool. And I hung out with them all night. We had dinner and stuff. It was a lot of fun. And one of them was like, yeah, man, I just want to say thank you. I really love your videos. And, you know, I only had one Dreamcast related thing, but I wanted you to have it. And that was this. It was a, this is a demo disc. This is Dream On Volume 2. This is the German version, so it's got German text everywhere, which is a really cool little oddity for me for collector's reasons. And he gave it to me just because he was like, this is the only Dreamcast thing I have left, and, you know, you're the Dreamcast guy, and I really love your Dreamcast videos and all that stuff, so I wanted you to have it. So thank you very much for doing that. So that fan meetup was awesome. Thank you again to everyone who came out for that. Now, moving on, like I said, a lot of the stuff this trip around that was easier to get was all current gen stuff. So PS4, Xbox One, that kind of thing. That's what you were finding everywhere. So with that said, I decided I wanted to pick up some either PS4 or Xbox One regional exclusives. If you're not aware, there's a lot of games that will come out in North America digitally that Europe will get physically for one reason or another. So I was in various stores looking at the games and being like, okay, I don't recognize that, I don't recognize that, I don't recognize that. I'd take a photo of everything. And then I would, you know, look up each game and see what the case was. And sometimes it was actually released in North America, and I'd be, oh, okay, don't worry about that one. Or in a lot of cases, it was released in the UK, but not, you know, not the US. Now, if it's released in the UK, typically that's my favorite version of any sort of European exclusive because, understandably so, the whole thing's in English, so it's not, there's no language barrier issues, and all the artwork and everything is fully in English, so it's really nice. For that reason, I typically don't try that aggressively in countries like Germany or Austria to get the exclusives there, because I'd rather have the full English versions. Whereas the gameplay is typically still in English, it's just the artwork and the descriptions, the manuals, all that fun stuff, that it's not in English. But Ronald and I went to a GameStop, like that horrible chain. In Europe, it's not that bad. In Europe, it's actually kind of nice. So we went to one, and they had a bunch of the exclusive games I needed, but they were used, and they were much cheaper, and I was like, for the prices that they were offering, I was like, maybe I should just do it, because you still have, the game is fully in English, the title's in English and all that stuff, it's just the descriptions. So I was like, all right, fuck it, I'll do it. And after I bought a bunch of games, I looked some up and I realized I'd made a huge mistake with the very first one. This is The Town of Light. It's a cool looking horror game. The mistake I made was this game actually was released in North America, and I had actually eliminated it from my list, but I forgot which list I had eliminated it from. So when I was in the store, I was like, yeah, that's right, that was an important one. I better buy that. Fucking dumbass mistake. But yeah, at least the console's region free, so I have no problem actually using it. Now the rest of these actually were exclusives. Silence, which I don't really know what it's about. It looks cool, but I can't read the description, obviously, so I can't tell you. Yesterday Origins. Dreamfall Chapters, which I actually didn't know there was a new Dreamfall game. Like, that's a franchise that goes back to like the OG Xbox, so pretty cool that they made another one of these. These can be kind of misleading. So this one is the German version, or at least the Austrian version. You have to be careful about that too. A lot of the times the German version can be censored for whatever reason, but the Austrian version is not. And the way you kind of can tell sometimes is if it has the PEGI system on here, which is like the British rating system, typically then it's the Austrian version and it's okay. Whereas if it only has the USK logos, that's the purely German version, and that can be bad as far as potential censorship. Not always. I'm not saying all German games are always censored. I'm just saying there's a greater chance of it if that's the case. So in this case, this one's kind of misleading because you look at the back and it flat out says the text of the game is in German, and so is the audible language, and that's it. But you actually pop the game in and it's fully in English. The reason for that, if it has the PEGI system, it's going to be in English. So there's a lot to that, but yeah. So again, I would have rather had the British version because then it would be fully in English, but for the price it was offering for all these, I had to go with it. Now, that said, I decided to continue to look into PS4 and Xbox One exclusives, and I found out there was actually three at least that I found, that were only released in Germany and Austria, as in there is no UK version either. So those I definitely wanted to get. Now I'm just going to show them to you, talk a little bit about it, and then give you a second to see if you can figure out why all three of these are exclusive to those two countries. First, Bridge Constructor. It's exactly what it sounds like. I've heard it's actually kind of a fun little puzzle game, actually. The Inner World. I don't know much about this, but the artwork at least makes it look pretty neat. And finally, the one that definitely was the most exciting to me, Toby, The Secret Mine. This is actually supposed to be like a spiritual successor, or a spiritual sequel, if you will, unofficial sequel, whatever you want to call it, or a game heavily inspired by Limbo. It actually looks a hell of a lot like Limbo and plays a lot like it too, which is pretty fucking cool. Now, could you catch what the coincidence was there? Not coincidence, the thing that is obviously the reason that all three of those games are exclusive? No? Okay. They're all published by a company called Head Up. And I assume they're a German or at least Austrian publisher, because in all three cases, these games were only released in those two countries. In all three cases, the same publisher is responsible for it. So that leads me to think that publisher is only willing to produce them in those two countries. Now, the problem with these kind of exclusives is that they could be very temporary. Like the Light one, the Town of Light, at one time was, and then isn't. So you have to be kind of careful with that. Since I was there, they were cheap, I picked them up, kind of hoping, I guess, that they don't get released here, but if they do, whatever, they're region free, I'll be alright. So there you go. That was it for PS4 stuff. Moving on, my one and only North American pickup this month, Splatoon 2. Splatoon 2 for the Nintendo Switch. Now, funny thing about this one is I'd really forgotten I'd ever ordered it. Back when the Switch got a whole lot more information, I think it was last January, Visa and Best Buy had a deal together where if you bought basically $100 worth of content at one time, they would knock off $25. So what a lot of people, including myself, were doing is they were basically adding items up to do separate transactions of $100 here, $100 there, etc., until you just knock $25 off. In addition to your Gamers Club Unlocked discounts with pre-orders and all that, you could essentially pre-order all your games for the year for basically 50% off. So this game only cost me about 30 bucks, which was nice day one release, so definitely cool. Now, as mentioned, the GameStops over there are not pure shit like they are over in North America. So after I bought a few of those games, I was leaving, and the guy was like, hey, hang on a second, you bought a bunch of stuff, so if you want some free stuff, there's a table right here. You go ahead and take any one item off the table you want for free, it's all yours. And so what I took actually was this. This is a Mafia 3 mug. It's you know, you can use it to drink out of, but it specifically says it's not designed to be microwaved, which kind of really limits how useful a mug can be. But you put a hot drink in it, and it will actually, you know, an image will appear, which is, I think, pretty neat. It says, not suitable for dishwasher or microwave use. In other words, pretty useless. Check this out. Ronald actually had this commissioned for me. This is a like a bead artwork thing. He had made up, and obviously what it ends up looking like is Sonic the Hedgehog, and I thought that was pretty neat. So I got to find a nice little place to display this. But yeah, this thing is pretty cool. Ronald just kind of did that for no real reason. So thank you for doing that, Ronald. That was really nice. And it looks really, really cool, especially from a distance. Like close up, you can tell obviously what it is, but when the further back it goes, you're like, oh shit, that really looks like Sonic. So that's really awesome. So thank you, Ronald. More random items here. This is a vinyl record by Data Discs for Altered Beast, the classic Sega Genesis or Mega Drive game. I remember the music in that game being pretty cool, so it's actually awesome that they made a record of this. I believe I ordered the special edition one. I don't even remember because it was a while ago. But the only difference there would be the plastic, like how it looks on the record itself. But yeah, definitely cool. I've got the full set so far, and I really like these, so I'm glad they continue to make these. I'm glad people are still supporting them. Now, another little random package I've got here. Funny thing about this arrived months ago. Like months ago. And I put it in a pile and I just completely forgot about its existence, which is a shame. You know, a pox on me for what I did here. You'll see in a second why. So let me finally open this up, and you guys can make fun of me for not being more efficient with it. Inside, what we have is a little coupon thing, but basically what it is a Shenmue-themed jacket by a company called Insert Coin. It's basically Ryo Hazuki's jacket, you know, the one he wears in the game, but a lot of people said that they didn't like this particular iteration of it. I got it because it's officially licensed Shenmue merch, which there's not usually a whole lot of. But yeah, I wanted it for that reason. So I don't know if I'm going to take it out of the package or not, because I don't really intend to wear it. So probably nicer to just leave it this way. But yeah, Shenmue themed jacket. So there you go. Now, moving on back to video games. As you guys probably know, if you've been watching me regularly, I really want to get, actually, hang on, I'll get into that in a second. I forgot to talk about something else first. Yes, first game here is not what I thought it was. When Ronald and I were walking around this mall, the same one with GameStop, we found a store called Mueller. Mueller's kind of like a drugstore, like a Walgreens or a Shoppers if you're Canadian, and they always have like a little kind of weak sauce video game section in them. So I checked it out, even though it was the usual kind of shit, where you're just seeing sports titles and stuff like that. But in this case, they had a game that over there is nothing, but to me I was like, oh shit, I don't recognize that at all, I bet you that's an exclusive. I looked it up, sure enough, it was. It's a game called Iron Sky Invasion. Now, this game was released on the 360 and the PS3, and I was preferring the PS3 version because that one's region free, whereas unfortunately this one is region locked, so I can't actually use it. Which is really annoying. You know, you put it in the console, and it not only sees the name of the game, it even shows the artwork, and it's like, do you want to play the game? You press start, and it starts up, and then immediately you get an error screen. Oh, no, sorry, you're in the wrong country, I guess. I fucking hate region coding. But, yeah, the premise of this game is actually kind of amusing. It's from a TV show of the same name that came out in 2012. The premise is basically that at the end of World War II, a bunch of Nazis went to the dark side of the moon, and they built, like, bases, and they hid out there until 2018, next year. Until they invade and they create the Fourth Reich. Like, that's the premise of the show. So this is the video game that went in tandem with it. But yeah, so I'm sure it's not that great of a game, to be honest with you, but it was only a couple of bucks, and I was like, hey, it's an exclusive, what the hell. I did look around the same store to see if I could find the PS3 version, but they didn't have it, so I went with the 360 one, but there you go. Now, back to what I was trying to say earlier. So if you guys know, or you've been watching me for a while, you know I'm really into the OG Xbox. I really like collecting for it, and I really want to get a full set eventually. And so while I was in Europe, I thought maybe I could chip away at some of the exclusives, like I do a lot of the time when I'm there if I get the chance. But as mentioned before, in the countries I was in, that's easier said than done. So I really didn't find any until I was at Ronald's house, and he was like, oh yeah, I got this box of OG Xbox stuff, go ahead and take a look, see if there's anything you need. And he had a couple. He had Richard Burns' Rally, which I was like, oh sweet, okay, good to get that off of the list. And the other one he had was very interesting. Unfortunately, it was incomplete, so I can't really count it as actually having it, but I took it anyway, because, you know, why not? Maybe I can get the manual later. It's a game called Yeti Sports Arctic Adventures. The thing that's interesting about this game is, as far as I know, this is the only game on the OG Xbox that was exclusive to Germany and Austria. And I'm not even 100% sure it actually came out in Austria. I know it came out in Germany, though. Which is kind of uncommon for the Xbox, like to have a single country exclusive. I mean, unless you include, of course, Japanese stuff, I guess, but a lot of the Asian stuff is like that. But in this case, yeah, to have a game come out only in one country in Europe is kind of strange. But yeah, Yeti Sports Arctic Adventures, although I can't really count it as actually having it, because without the manual it's incomplete, therefore it doesn't really count. But at least I got Richard Burns Rally. Now the other OG Xbox exclusive I got was kind of ironic. It was this. This is Xbox Video Chat. Now remember I mentioned earlier that Ronald had ordered a bunch of stuff from Japan for me. This was one of those items. Now you can see the frustration in this box. This thing was minty fresh, flawless, sealed when he got it. It's beat to shit now because it's been mailed multiple times and multiple damaged packages, which is really unfortunate that the post offices all seem to suck that bad. Because once you get past that and you open it up, it's flawless inside. Like it's sealed, everything's still hermetically sealed and all that shit. It's really nice in there. But basically if you're like, what the hell is this? For whatever reason, Microsoft released this in Japan only for the OG Xbox. It's essentially Skype for the OG Xbox. I know. That's basically what it is. And when I was in Japan, I was actively looking for it. I never saw it anywhere. And I had completely forgotten Ronald had ordered it. But yeah, so when I was there, he was like, oh yeah, here it is, take it with you. I was like, oh shit, that's right. So yeah, now, because of Europe, my Asian OG Xbox set is complete. This was the last item on that list. I have all the Japanese exclusives, which is, I believe, 48. Plus, there's one that came out in only South Korea, and one that came out in Singapore and Taiwan. Oddly enough, those two countries, the same game, and it's very uncommon. But I have all those now, so yes, my OG Xbox Asian subset is finally completed, so that's awesome. And now, our last two items here, which I'm sure are something you can easily recognize, we have a Sega Dreamcast and an NES. Now, each of these items is very special, and each of these items is going to get its own video, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but basically, the Dreamcast is funny because when I was in Germany, I was contacted by a guy named Jan, who lived in Austria. And he messaged me basically saying, like, are you still hopping around in Germany and Austria? You know, basically what I do is I custom modify Dreamcast, and I was hoping I could hook you up with a review unit. And I was like, you know what, mail it to my buddy in Austria and I'll pick it up there. So that's what he did. Now the thing that's cool about this is that it has a CF card reader inserted into it. At the same time, it preserves its GD-ROM. In short, what that means is it can read games originally off the disc or off of the CF card, which is really cool. Now again, I'll do a video on it by itself, so you'll get more information later, but in a nutshell, that's what it is. And on top of that, this is the NES. This is the infamous NES that we started work on 2 years ago that is now finally completed. When I brought it back to him, he looked inside and he found out there was really nothing wrong with his wiring. What had actually had gone wrong was there was two solder points that had just not quite connected the way they were supposed to, so he fixed them in like half a second and immediately the thing was working. So while he was in there, he decided to tweak around and make some other changes. What he did was he added an S-video port as well as a switch. And if you're like, what is special about this NES? You haven't really made that clear. This is an RGB modified NES. You have to understand, 2 years ago there was no such thing as an HDMI mod for the NES. That's more of a relatively new thing. But you could get RGB mods. There was a new board out at the time that really made these things look amazing. And so that's what we went ahead and did. So now it's fully operational and it now supports RF, composite, S-video, and RGB. And I've run through it, man. It's fucking great. I also put the blinking light win in it, so it reads the games 100% of the time and they look fantastic. So that's really awesome. I'm glad that that's finally complete. So yeah, I just want to say thank you to Ronald for everything he did. Thank you to Jan for that. Thank you to those dudes in Germany who all showed up to hang out with me in Berlin. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all later.